Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Welcome Urbanista. Welcome May. Welcome JP. Welcome Gemini. And of course Melinda. Welcome everyone. We're going to get this going soon. Get back and get some elevator music going. Take your time. We're going to wait till everybody gets up in here. Here we go, backgrounds. Okay. I'm going to do something different this time. Calvin Harris. Siobhan's in the house. Hey, Gemini. Let me know if you see what you need to see. It looks pretty normal here. Bring speakers, moderators, or assistants into the studio. Yeah, invite guests. That's everybody. Okay. Oh, there's May. Okay, here we go. All right. Right.
That's my troll account. I got a couple.
Me too. You always gotta have them.
Oh yeah, I get blocked a lot, so.
Okay.
But I don't
Okay, let's see here. Let me fire up my iOS device. Maybe I can find out what's going on.
Can y'all hear me okay? I'm using a microphone on my computer. Is it okay?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, cool.
Sounds fine.
Cool.
Fine as wine in the summertime. Okay, JP's in the house.
Hey, brother.
Yeah.
What's going on, ladies?
Okay, JP, how you doing?
Oh man, I was bumping some Miles Davis before I hit the link. So
I hear that.
yeah.
Okay, so let me see here.
Hey, you guys, while he's getting ready, I wanted to see, do y'all want to put together a little bit of a outline of major talking points or topics? Maybe 2 or 3?
That is totally up to you. Let us know what you want.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, we're talking about modernism versus feminism. And you know, it's my perspective that feminism is being so-called blamed, And I think we need to talk about what modernism is and the evolution of people. And that needs to be part of the conversation. So I just want to get like a brainstorm real quick of at least 3 ideas that we need to make sure that we hit, just the topics or something like that, a little bit of a guide. So anybody got thoughts you want to throw out? I write them down.
I guess define or
I'm listening.
we discuss how to define them, how each one. If they different.
Hey Gemini, your sound is breaking up a lot.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it still?
It's like you hear every other syllable.
Yeah, Gemini, did you use what am I trying to say? Did you use Safari as your browser?
I don't remember. We go out.
Okay, anybody have any guiding?
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Perfect.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. I had 2 points. I think we should start with the definition
Yeah.
of feminism because I think a lot of people get this mixed up.
I'm writing it down.
And I actually looked up a definition for modernization as well too. So I think that would be helpful.
Okay, so definitions. We'll start off with definitions. Modernization. Okay. Anybody else have any other thoughts of things we need to? We'll start off with the definitions. Anybody else have any thoughts about topics to guide our discussion?
I think the definitions of the most important one because that's what's guiding it. Obviously, the definition and what makes modernization different than feminism, which is obvious. And then after that, I guess the next stage is, if something is just a modernization, why are they calling it feminism? But I'm going to be in the background and let you guys brainstorm. I'm trying to get Gemini online because she's going to be able to help out as well.
Okay. I think I see her there. Gemini, did you have something to contribute? You're on mute.
Let's see.
She went out and I guess she'll come back. Okay, so we'll start out with definitions of feminism, modernism, and then we'll talk about more in detail what does feminism mean and why does it have to be the boogeyman, and then talk more about why people might need to look at modernization a little bit deeper, and what does that mean for us as a society.
Sounds good. Sounds real good.
Cool.
I think I can shoot from the hip on this topic, so I'll let the ladies rock out.
Oh yeah, I mean, we just vibe it out. We'll just have some points that we kind of make sure we hit, and then we can start off with 5-6 people, and then we can expand the panel. I guess once we feel like we've covered the basic talking points, and then get everybody's perspective. That's kind of what I've seen most people do. Hey, Melinda, did you have some ideas you wanted to add?
Oh, yes. And it probably in about 5 or so minutes, if I jump off, I'll get back on because I have to, if I get a phone call, I can't do both. But anyway, I was thinking maybe historical origins of what, maybe that's too broad, but of whatever we're discussing tonight, like the historical origins, maybe.
Of which thing? Sure.
I guess of, because honestly, I don't know a lot about modernism, but was the other topic the feminist movements?
Yeah, feminist. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess a feminism, maybe just someone said define it, I think, before I had to jump off just a second ago. But before that, I kind of whenever we get started, I just want to end on what I was trying to say on the other panel. It was just a quick little thing I was going to say because it kind of carries over.
Go ahead.
Okay. What I wanted to say was kind of the point sometimes that people will use, were you hurt and stuff like that. And my answer to that is really we shouldn't use that, because it's like if I was hurt and really done dirty and stuff and had a hard life, it would prove the rule, not the exception. right? So it would just be the rule if that's the case, because they don't realize it's kind of, that's like a trap that they go into. Like, but I also want to say, I get it that people might have had great situations. Like, I could say, well, look, because I'm HBCU graduate, I'm a member of the largest sorority, Black Greek sorority. I can, and my family's all mostly college educated, even my grandmother. I can use all that too, but at the same time, I can also know that we can't just use that and kind of think that, well, I'm this person or I'm that person, because even if there were 50 of the people who experienced that, some awesomeness, it still doesn't it doesn't negate what we see, what we need to fix. And I think that if we're not willing to look at some basic truths and stuff, we're not going to get anywhere. But I think that the discussions are just, I think they need to keep happening. But that's what I wanted to say.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
absolutely. And I think it's dismissive when people say that, like, oh, you're hurt. Even,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
we're all hurt. Who
It
we
does, right,
kidding?
and
Who
again,
we kidding?
it would prove the rule. If that's the case, it would,
Yeah.
wouldn't be the exception. It would be like, okay, well, we all are, but you're right. It is dismissive, and just kind of when they say like, "Are you married?" That's another kind of thing that's thrown up too. You that kind of thing. So yeah, but that's what I wanted to say. That's how I wanted to end that other. But yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I agree. And what annoys me about that is people act as if you cannot have a perspective without necessarily living in that space, right? And that's what
Right.
bothers me in a lot of these conversations, because honestly, I always hear this bitter Black woman thing. And just because you have an opinion or you're calling something out, it does not necessarily imply that you live in a bitter space. You're just calling out truths, quite frankly, or
And when
observations.
go ahead. Okay.
I'm sorry, or observations, right, that you may have had.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't like that either. I feel like it's very unfair.
And when I had thrown out the fact that, it's really not about red pill, because again, we got to stop, using things as shields. Because again, this stuff, what predates anything that before red pill was even thought of. And so then it was like, oh, lunch counters and having, stuff thrown in your face. See, it always became another issue. That's why I'm saying with the red pill, it's just the latest thing that we can mask,
Right.
some of these issues with. So that's what I wanted to say too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. I
Mhm.
mean, this is all about we live in a society that is a patriarchic society, right? So it started from the beginning, right? At the end of the day, it didn't
But I'm
start
optimistic,
from
so don't
the
think just
lunch
because I
counter.
say the things like this, I'm not optimistic. It's not even
Yeah,
about that. It's like you gotta yank the bad tooth out first. You can't just keep putting salve on it.
Yeah, I just see a whole lot of yanking. Ain't no teeth coming out. That's my problem.
Well, but the yanking has to take place, right? We have to yank, because that's the problem. It's never been yanked. It's kind of, we've been just kind of uh putting lipstick on it. We've been dusting it off, and we've not
Right.
really, it's never dealt with this. So it has to be. So even if it looks as though uh it's one way, it literally has to go that way. It has to. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
All right, so we'll start with definitions. And appreciate you for sharing that, sister. It's important for us Black women to give voice, and have space to speak freely. Even if we don't always agree with each other, I think we still need to express ourselves. All right, so
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you too. Thank you, y'all. I love this platform. Thanks.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Urbanista, do you want to start off with your definitions?
yeah, I'm happy to start off with my definition. So I looked up the definition of feminism, and it says that advocacy of women's rights on the basis of equality of the sexes. And then I looked up the definition of modernization, and it is the process of adapting something to modern needs or habits.
Everybody agree? Everybody, those are working definitions. That's what I've got as well.
Worked for me.
Okay.
It'll work. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. So, as y'all know, in I don't want to just say in this red pill space, it's new to me, but it's not new to everybody else. But even just in general, what we're dealing with is this blame game. And I know I'm not alone. Y'all can speak to this. How often do you hear feminism blame?
All the
All the
time.
time, all day, every
Quite
day.
frequently, to be honest with you.
It's the manosphere cat call, basically.
Yes.
It is the root of all evil. I mean, it's like this boogeyman, and I'm just like, where's the boogeyman? That's what I want to know. Where is the boogeyman? Because what they're talking about, I don't even think they know the definition. They don't understand it. I mean, if you look at what does it say again? What's the definition? I had written it down. The
Advocacy of women's
advocacy. Uh huh.
rights. The advocacy of women's rights.
Right. And so let's look at that. Like, what are women's rights? Because I'm trying to
Life,
figure out what the problem
liberty,
is.
pursuit of happiness,
Okay, so we got the pursuit of happiness.
life, freedom, the right to, live your life how you want to live. Granted, you don't cause harm to other people.
Freedom voting, freedom of movement, freedom of occupation, right?
Correct. Freedom not to be discriminated against based on your sex.
Freedom from discrimination based on sex. Freedom to choose who you want to marry. We're not marrying women off
Absolutely.
to people they don't want to be married to.
That's right.
Marry and divorce. So what the fuck is the problem?
I've been trying to figure that out too, man. I've been chopping it up with guys in the red pill, chopping it up with guys in the black pill, and things of that nature. I'm still, it's like, wait a minute,
What was the question?
She
Well,
was asking, what was the problem, basically.
yeah, when we define feminism, it's the rights on the basis of equality of sexes, the right to marry, the right to divorce, the right to pursue your happiness, the right of freedom of movement, voting rights, occupation, freedom from discrimination based on sex, like like human rights. They're just basic rights. Unfortunately, women had to fight for those rights. But I'm just saying, what the fuck is the problem? If this is what feminism is, what is the problem?
I think it's the different waves, and two that could probably be put into the latest wave, where I guess it's mostly it maybe comes out of. I'm thinking maybe Marxism, and listen, I haven't done my full homework on that, but I think that's where you see, kind of a difference. But the thing is this, I feel that I've never even looked at myself as, whenever I would describe myself, and people would always tell me this, other races, like you always say black, like I'm black. I see myself as black even before a woman. So I never really looked at anything that was sexist or sexism. I always would be more concerned with racism. So, again, I guess the older I get, and kind of the way the outlook is now for us, maybe I should, but I don't think black women ever really cared much about what people call feminism. Was for us, it was just like basic rights, and it just like humanitarian type stuff,
Right.
but it got the label as feminism. So I guess that's my little.
I agree. I don't think black women, the feminist movement was never about black women, which is why we had a whole womanist movement, right? Um, because we typically always lead with what we look like and who we are from a race standpoint versus our sex. And I think now it's turned to a situation where I can tell you that every day I battle more so, and maybe it's just because of the type of career that I have, but I battle a lot more with being the only woman, and the pressure that I have with being the only woman and hearing these conversations and battling, battling everyday life, right, as a woman at this point. But I agree with what you're saying about us also having that layer of race as well too. So it's a double, right? For women, for black women, it's being a woman, and it's also being black too.
Yeah, they call that what, intersectionality.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, where you have all these different selves, and when you walk into a room, you can't leave any part of yourself
You
behind. You come
can't.
as a whole
Yeah.
person. If you are, I met a woman, and she happened to be disabled. She was an albino. She was a woman of color, and I was just like, wow, what experiences does she have that I could never imagine. We walk in and we come as who we are. So I agree that, for the most part, black women, we've kind of, if anything, we had to label ourselves, it would be a womanist. But I do think that we have this thing that we've never named. Some people call it black girl magic. We come up with these little funny ways of talking about it because
Yeah.
we're not organized like that.
Um, and I guess the organization probably started off as just well, no, I don't know if I should say it was just survival at first, but then when you saw organization mostly happening, the women really were focused on the women. But let me tell you where a shift did take place. Um, there was someone had said that, because I used to watch some of the women's movements. They would go up and speak, like women's marches, and I did notice this, y'all. There was one I watched, maybe a couple, where the white women at the women's march, supposed to be about women, their issues, they would get up and they would talk about, me, my, me as a woman, blah, blah, blah. Then, y'all, I'm serious. When the black women would get up, it was like, because I have a son, because my community, because I have a husband. It was kind of like that. So again, I think that with most black women, that's why I hate that we get this rap that we're getting. I am still very focused on race first. To me, I don't even know what it's like to be discriminated against as a woman. But what I have noticed is this. What I've noticed is a shift in our community, especially online, because kind of, I guess, how I identify religiously, it seemed like it's kind of putting me on like on the front lines of this. But it's this whole thing of a lot of some of the black men talking about polygyny and a woman's place and stuff like that. That's when I'm seeing it with this sexism. Before, I never even noticed that, but it's like it's not even coming from to black women. It's not even coming from the dominant society. It's like it's all this little stuff, these little, like a power struggle within intraracial, but it's not like black women are the ones fighting for power. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Now, are you saying that only online, or are you saying that in real life?
Oh, this is it. This is outside of it too. See,
Okay.
again, I think that we really have to realize that we are living online. I think I made a comment online when we see some of the stuff. It's just a symptom of what we haven't really dealt with. So now it's like people they got a microphone and an internet connection, so it's like we're living it. And we're living even the intraracial racism. We're living the kind of the disrespect and the not being regarded as as I guess as viable partners based on what these marriage rates and stuff look like. So that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's online is one thing. We can't pretend that it's just online. It's not. Sometimes people just don't talk about that. You don't know what someone's views are until you might see them. This is how they keep busting people with their after something happens to them, they go to their Twitter, they go to their Facebook. That's another example why you don't know what people think until you might see them where they feel like they have anonymity, but they don't.
I would
Yeah.
have to agree with that. I think they try. It's funny because they try to play two sides of the plate. One thing they're saying, well, this is the red pill. They'll first say, yeah, we're everywhere. We're not just, on here. A lot of men, we just suffer in silence. Remember Kevin Samuel said that? But now when they do something bad, like they go, like the passport bros, oh, that's not all black men. You see how they play it? Now they want to play the other side. So, Oh, I'm done.
No, agreed. I think art is imitating life. You're absolutely right. And we're seeing it without question.
So in terms of feminism, there's a lot of waves of it. You know, I don't want to go down the history of all of it, but I'll just kind of throw some ideas out. And I think it is important to point out that this like feminism, so-called waves, first, second, and we can debate a third. Um, you know, I'm just gonna throw out the ideas that came out of that. Just a little hodgepodge, and you guys feel free to jump in. But you know, feminism, some of the organizing of women started somewhat during, you know, prohibition, but it was going a different way towards traditionalism. So women, particularly white women, have always been organizing to be the moral standard of white society, even to the bad sides of it when it came to black folks. So they haven't always, they haven't ever really organized around our interests at all. Quite to the contrary. But birth control, women's rights to vote, women's rights to work, you know, all of these things had to be fought for. And, you know, as far as I know, historically, the first so-called feminist that I have heard of is Sojourner Truth, who was a black woman. And she talked about women having the right to representation and the right to vote and suffrage rights. But you know, we have had a long history of liberating ourselves and our community as black women. We had since before, you know, I guess you would say our roots in America. For those of us who are foundational black Americans, we've been doing that work. And so this is, I want to say almost like it's parallel, like this so-called, you know, textbook feminism, but it definitely did not put black issues at the root. And what we're seeing now, I don't know how y'all feel about it, but I feel like there's some pushback, and we're almost moving into, y'all seen The Handmaid's Tale?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I heard a lot about it.
Yeah, and it's like so relevant right now, and it's scary as fuck because this red pill stuff and the return, or I guess you would say the taking down of Roe versus Wade, you know, it's taking us back as women, the idea of our bodies, ourselves, and just a lot of rights. You know, it's really going backwards, and so that is the scary part of it. But when we look at what feminism is, and then we talk about equality of the sexes, and so the question I'll pose, are we equal? Is there a difference? Are we the same? We don't get drafted. So where do we draw the line as women? Does it matter?
So I think that's where modernization comes into play, right? Because we live in a modern society. So does that question even matter at this point?
What, that women are truly treated equal? What does equal mean?
Well, what I mean is, are we truly, the question around, are we equal, right? You asked the question, are men and women equal? And what I said is we live in a modern society. So living in a modern society where we don't live in a physical labor driven world anymore. We live in a very service driven economy, right? So does it matter whether or not women and men are equal if the workforce is really about brain power? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Well, a couple of things come to my mind. The reason why I asked that question is because I have concerns about women being drafted, and that's one place where we're not actually equal. Do we want to demand being drafted just like men? We are treated differently. That's a form of discrimination that favors us. I mean, if we're being honest. Also, to our disadvantage, I think we're not actually equal in pay. There's been a lot of studies that show that, you know, I even had a principal illegally ask me if I planned on, because I was younger and married, and he asked me, did I plan on getting pregnant as part of my interview? That's none of your damn business. But he had the nerve, and I wanted the job, so I answered it in a way that I felt was going to be suitable, because I knew what he wanted to hear, that I wouldn't be going on maternity leave and having substitutes and all this other stuff. There's inequalities that still exist. So I'm just asking, do we need to be concerned about equality as women, are we equal to men?
I used to would say that was even something I never thought about, because again, I'll say, I was always like more thinking about racism and stuff. But I would say this, going back to that Handmaid's Tale, I have a point about that. I have a point about the pay, and I think I wrote down about how white women, when it came to feminism, really didn't look at our issues. So let me start with the first one. I think I said about the Handmaid's Tale. When I think it, I'm being very honest. I want to say, I don't think it's affecting. It's still control. It's still people trying to have control over, women's reproductive rights. So let's just say that is true. But I think it's, for us, it's different than for white women, because I see that for white people, there's probably this thought of, hey, our families we're getting smaller families, we're not having as many children, and if you're people who, for whatever reason, if it's even genetically, or just even if it's a spiritual issue or something, you want to stay in power, that is a concern, so you want to keep producing after you. Okay, so we got that. For Black women, if anyone's trying to control it for Black women, it's going to be, let me see this. I think for us, it's different, because if we are having children the same way we've been having them, people are aware that we're doing this out of wedlock. Okay, so this is what. So then that means your womb is fueling systems instead of controlling systems. So if they want to keep up, if these people have done the research and they've been so deviously, crafty and strategic, that they realize that the more you keep having children, I guess, out of the nuclear family set, or even what is a little more family than just your nuclear, with more support, like the village type of thing, they realize that your child is at risk. So you keep systems up by that, and that's not a good thing, right? So they're always talking about the prison industrial complex.
You said your womb is how did you say that?
I say your womb is fueling, what you're doing is fueling these systems, these different institutions. See, it's like, if these people want their kids to keep being born, they're trying to stay being born to be in control, right? They'll never have the numbers, as but they still have this. They still hold the power, so they want more of themselves to be, to stay in power. They don't just want to diminish to where they're, don't have a whole lot of them. But for us, if they're controlling how we give birth, it's because they'll need, if all Black women decide, hey, I'm not going to have any more kids. I'm kind of wondering then what would happen to the different things that they feel like we are.
I get what you're saying. You're talking about even like how in slavery they purposefully needed Black women.
Yes. Yes. Right. So, and again, it's for a different reason. So again, it's still for ominous reasons, right? But I kind of think that I think that sort of, that's why I'm thinking. I'll come back to that, y'all. But if y'all kind of saw where I was going with that, it's just that I think if you all of a sudden decided not to have kids, I'm wondering if they would kind of come down on and try to be more focused on Black women having kids. And I think that with a greedy world that goes on human capital, you do need people, period. So I kind of think that there's never going to be, there's always going to be incentive then for women to have children. Okay, so that was that. But I just wish that we wouldn't have them in the ways that we are, so that our children would be protected, so that our children would be brought up, in more security, and instead of being brought up and then, at risk and then ending up in the traps that, So the last thing was with white women and about our issues. I don't think they ever have. I don't think they've needed to care, because their issues have never been exactly the same as ours. So I think that it's like people mostly are very race focused and race centric, and I think that Black women really are. So, but I think that we probably never have really depended on white women to really have our backs in these movements, because every time I see a movement to come, I've seen them the Malcolm X was right. They kind of will go to the front line, and they'll take over the movement. So that's what I wanted to say. I'm sorry if I was long winded, y'all.
No, no, it's cool. Urbanista, did you have some thoughts? Thank you.
No, no, I agree. I was kind of echoing you. We can't trust white women because, yeah, you're right. They don't have the same perspective, right? They're not dealing with racism, right? And then two, even when you think about the womanist movement, right? The reason why we had a womanist movement is because the feminist movement did not include us. Um, there's a lot of history around how, when they were doing marches, they put Black women in the back, right, of those marches, and the Southern white women didn't even want Black women to participate. So, yeah, I'm just echoing what you said, sister. I completely agree.
Now, who was worried about the draft being reinstated?
I wouldn't say I was worried about it, but when we start talking about equality as women, we do need to recognize that there are some privileges that we've been allowed to not be equal with, and the draft is definitely one. And I mean, it's our right to be drafted if we want. So it's not everything about running away from it. It might be there's some women that want to be drafted. And in the military, I understand that to this day, a woman cannot be a SEAL. She is not allowed to be a SEAL. That's not an option for a female who has a biological female. So, that kind of thing. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was just doing some research on that, and I was just gonna say, put your mind at ease because it's gonna take an act of Congress to reinstate that draft. So you'll definitely see it coming. As for any potential like hypothetical Gilead situation going on, you'll probably see that coming too because like whatever political party like takes on those like extreme ideas, you'll definitely see that coming. So you'll have plenty of chances to smash that before it even gets started. So I wouldn't be too concerned with both of those situations popping up.
Well, let me ask you this, Benji.
Mm-hmm.
As a black man,
Mm-hmm.
you see that there are a lot of black men moving that very conservative way. You don't think that black men might support in general might start moving that direction, this extreme, this take back our power over women, and through legislation. I never would have thought in my lifetime I would have seen Roe versus Wade overturned. Never. Do you think black men might actually contribute and speed up and support that?
Probably blindly, yes. I mean, but if anything like that does take hold, it'll be white men like spearheading that. And if it does take root, black men are probably will somewhat benefit from that, but to a very, very like diminished level. I mean, they're not going to let us be shoulder to shoulder, neck and neck with them. So, so basically, I'm not too worried about that either. I mean, it can happen within your homes, like right now. I mean, do maybe like an abusive situation, but you can always just get out of that. I would suggest, or I would think.
Yeah. And moving this into the idea of modernization. If
Mm-hmm.
we look at modernization, I almost want to say that what I think is happening is that the evolution of people is happening very, very fast. And I don't know that we're ready for the speed that things are moving at. Um, just like what you just said about possibly going backwards. We have reactions. That's how we get movements in
Mm-hmm.
humanity. You know what I'm saying? We have waves of people reacting to something. And modernization has happened very rapidly. And I think white men, and I'm only bringing up white men because they do run the power structure. These are the same white men that gave all the women the rights to vote, because nothing could be done without their permission, if we're honest. The women have the right to have jobs, equality, all these different things, paid maternity leave, all these different things. Women have got the right to be in Congress, in political positions. We got a female vice president. Women have like rapidly risen. And I hate when brothers try to talk about the welfare state. That's the part that irritates. When I say the fuck out of me, I'm so tired of everybody talking about black women have used the government in order to, but any way you want to look at it, all of these social programs or whatever it may be, it was all done with the permission of white men. Not white females, not black females. It was done by white men. And now they're having buyer's remorse because they're realizing they have a negative birth rate. So now the reaction against modernism is happening by a wave of white men who are seeing, oh shit, there's too many Mexicans, too many blacks, too many Asians. So we have two battling like wars. We have this movement towards modernization, and then we have the what did I call it? The Handmaid's Tale, and it's happening at the same fucking time. Go ahead.
Well, getting back to that, like again, I'm just trying to ease your. Well, I'm not saying you like tripping or stressing off it personally, but just any woman or sister that's worried about that, like any kind of like move towards like a dystopian future where like men are like this monolithic power and they're just like putting women under their feet. Again, I'm thinking about it like on a practical level. The men you're worried about are trying to get their passports and go overseas anyway. So if anything, they're not going to try to like put you under the yoke of Gilead. They're going to be trying to do that overseas. I mean, so if I were a sister in America, I wouldn't worry about that. I wouldn't worry about any kind of like